starting off with a little bit of different note today. There's a lot going on and stuff, and we know that we need to be in position at all times and ready for whenever the enemy tries to launch an attack. And the most powerful way to come back at him, obviously, is with the word. But the only way, exactly. So we're gonna kind of explore some different things today, but and actually, what we are kind of the gist of what we're talking about today has to do with how you are the deciding factor in a battle. Right. Only you, not Yahweh. He's already seen the end from the beginning. He's all. That's right. Only you can prevent forest fires in your life. Yeah, definitely.
Well, it's true. What is it? Is it James that talks about how great a forest can be kindled by one match? And he's talking about the tongue.
But so we're going to kind of go on a journey of some different things that bring us all back to, that will bring us back to how the most important thing are our words. We're really big in this camp about that, and rightfully so. Okay, you're either going to have the victory or you're going to have the defeat by what comes out of your mouth, by what your battle stance is. And your battle stance has to do with the words of your mouth. But there's some other factors that line up with that to make sure that you're in the correct battle stance so that you are sure of the right words coming out of your mouth. But before we do that, we were kind of talking today about the sermon and stuff, and it was like, how you read a book, and when you open to the beginning of it, a lot of times they'll say who they dedicate their book to. I dedicate this to the most influential person in my life, Aunt so-and-so, or to my grandmother, or to my mom, to my dad, to whoever. Well, we were thinking about it, and I was like, it is Mother's Day weekend, and you give honor to whom honor is due. Amen? And so this sermon is dedicated to Mom. Because in all honesty, Jordan and I wouldn't be standing behind this bema if it wasn't for her, for what she has taught us and ingrained in us, all of us. None of us in this room would be where we are today if it wasn't for our mom, okay? And so I just wanted to read a couple of things about her family. Her family, she's got her, Gabriel, and Jordan. But this is her family, okay? And so we need to realize that we're extremely blessed and are in an extremely high place to have such a faith-filled mother. A mom who walks in all power and authority. A mom who does not allow the devil even a quarter of an inch. I don't know, what's the smallest thing? An eighth of an inch, even a little smidge, hair. Okay? A hair, okay? A mom a mom that the devil knows very well every time she gets up in the morning. And so I just I had come across this, and some of you may have seen it. KCM had sent out an email about faith-filled mothers for Mother's Day and stuff. And so in honor of our mom and how this sermon is dedicated to her, I wanted to read the characteristics that they listed out in here. And I think she would probably agree with some of this. It starts out saying, anyone who is a mother will tell you that motherhood is not easy, okay? Spiritual motherhood is not easy. Moms, us, we know from our own children and stuff that there's a tendency sometimes for it not to seem easy in the natural. But that's why when it comes to raising children, you keep your eyes out of the natural and you keep your eyes in this word. Everything that Yahweh has ordained mothers to do. All of us have been blessed with our children, each specific children, for such a time as this, and for a reason. There's a reason why, Tiffany is Malkia's mom. Nicole is Natanel Andrews' mom. I'm Azraelia's mom. Jessica is Riley and Jacob and Ethan's mom. Mom is Jordan and Gabriel and Justin and Tiffany's and mom and all of us, okay? All of us. 10 of them, okay? But you know what? I was just going to say, she's all of our mom.
Dozens of children.
Okay, there's really no distinct, there's no cutting line in that. There's no difference in that. But to honor our mom, I read these characteristics and I was like, whoa, this is very, very fitting to who she is. Okay, and if you read this email, you will know that. So characteristic number 1, unwavering love for Yahweh. Okay, 1 John 4:19 says, we love Yahweh because he first loved us. And it says here that the most important characteristic of a faith-filled mother is an unwavering love for Yahweh. Well, all of us in here can testify how there is a definite, day in, day out, every minute of her life, without wavering, without anything, there's an unwavering love for Yahweh. She displays it in everything she does. She displays it in every word that she speaks to somebody. She displays it in any action that she gives towards a person. It's an unwavering love for Yahweh. Characteristic number 2 says, determined love for your children. You know what? In all honesty, I'll have to speak for myself, but there's probably times when she's had to have a determined love because of stuff that I have done, any of us in here, okay? A determined love for your children. And Titus 2:4 says, these older women must train the younger women to love their husbands and their children. Now, this is talking about faith-filled mothers and specifically to every mom, but this applies for every guy sitting in here too, because that's who she is to all of us, to everybody sitting in here. Characteristic 3, love and appreciation for your responsibilities. Colossians 3:23 says, work willingly at whatever you do, as though you are working for the Lord rather than for people. So love and appreciation for your responsibilities. She goes above and beyond that. We know we come around to this time every single year, and we know about the Proverbs 31 woman, okay? And in that, she displays every single trait, characteristic, word that is spoken of in Proverbs 31. We have Proverbs 31 sitting in front of us, day in and day out, every service that we're here. Characteristic 4. Now, this one, it might kind of sound funny at first when you hear it, but there's a reason. Characteristic number 4, love for yourself. Proverbs 19:8 says, to acquire wisdom is to love yourself. People who cherish understanding will prosper. It says, as a mother, it can be easy to take care of everyone but yourself. But when you love yourself, you're creating a model for your children to follow. They can learn to love Yahweh and themselves as they watch you. So how does our mom love herself? By the endless time she spends with Yahweh every single day. Spending that time in the Word, in teachings, in decreeing and declaring over every single one of us every morning. She's building herself up. She's getting herself strong with we don't realize how much time that she really takes for us. Okay? There's a lot of hours upon hours upon hours of time that she spends before Yahweh, obviously for herself, but it's all for us ultimately also. And so, you can't
truly love someone else unless you love yourself. It says love your neighbor as you love yourself. If you're not loving yourself, then you're not loving your neighbor. That's where it starts.
So I think all of us in here can definitely say that Yahweh has created, so to speak, a model, the best representation of him through her. And we have the honor, the privilege of having that every single day. I mean, at a moment's notice, she's there for us. Okay, in the middle of the night, I know all of us in here can know, in the middle of the night, we can call her and she's going to answer that phone and be there for us. And still get up at the same time that she gets up every morning, okay? So we wanted to start out a little bit of give honor to where honor is due and then dedicate this sermon to her because, in all honesty, she is the most important person in our lives. Always has been, always will be. Amen? So, getting to our sermon, you are the deciding factor. We're actually going to compare two stories here. First one we're going to start out is with Gideon. And so if we turn to Judges 6:12, and we've talked about this many, many times, how every one of us faces battles. Every one of us, okay, faces battles, whether they're spiritual, emotional, physical, mental. I mean, these battles, obviously, we know they come in many different forms, whether it's financial attacks or health attacks or trials at work or whatever they may be. But every battle has a field, and every battle has weapons, and every battle has a deciding factor. And that deciding factor is you. You're the one that determines whether you're going to win or lose the battle that the enemy tries to bring against you. Is your result going to be victory, or is it going to be defeat? The deciding factor is really, it's not the enemy. Okay, it's not the environment around us. It's not our upbringing. It's not even the size of the challenge. It's you. You are the one who tips the scale. And you're either going to tip the scale for victory, or you're going to tip the scale for defeat. And it all comes with your words. But before it can even come down to your words, to make sure you're saying the right words, speaking the right words, there's got to be a mindset shift. Okay? So starting out with Gideon, because we're going to look at, you got to know what Yahweh has said about you and believe it. Yahweh has not created us to be some wimpy, weak, inadequate, can't do this, can't do that. That's not who he created. He created warriors. Before the very foundation of the earth was even formed, he saw each and every one of us, and he saw that's a warrior. That's the potential in each and every one of us. But it's up to us to walk out in that potential. So, your mindset, your faith, your resilience, your obedience, your words determine the outcome of the fight. It's not the fight around you, it's the fight within you. Okay? It's the fight within you. Who are you? What are you made of? What stuff are you made of? Okay? So, like I said, there's battles going on all over the place. But are you battle ready? And how do you get battle ready? By the word, and making a determined factor that's what the only thing that comes out of your mouth is the word. You're not at the mercy of the battle is at the mercy of you. And Yahweh has stepped into each one of our stories. We all have a story, and he's stepped into each one of our stories. So like in Gideon chapter 6, Judges. I was just going with that. There's a Gideon. Judges chapter 6 in verse 12. And it says, and the angel of the Lord appeared to him and said to him, the Lord is with you, you mighty man of fearless courage. Okay? That's how he saw Gideon. And he spoke it out. The Lord is with you, you mighty man of fearless courage. And Gideon said to him, O sir, if the Lord is with us, why is all this befallen us? And where are all his wondrous works of which our fathers told us, saying, did not the Lord bring us from Egypt, but now the Lord has forsaken us and given us into the hand of Midian. The Lord turned to him and said, go in this your might, and you shall save Israel from the hand of the Midian. Have I not sent you? Now keep in mind, okay, Gideon's in the wine press. Okay, he was in the wine press beating wheat, okay, hiding. All right, that's initially what Gideon was doing. In verse 15, Gideon says to him, O Lord, how can I deliver Israel? Behold, my clan is the poorest in Manasseh, and I am the least in my father's house. Okay, so Gideon's declaring how he sees himself. Okay, small vision, wrong mindset. Here he has the angel of the Lord show up in front of him and say, the Lord is with you, mighty warrior. Okay, ambassador. The Lord is, your ambassador. Yahweh didn't show up to Gideon and say, hello, scared man, how you doing today? Okay, because he's hiding in the wine press. He didn't say that. He said, mighty man of valor, mighty warrior. Different translations say different things. Yahweh spoke what the truth was about who Gideon was. So Gideon started out with one mindset, but then as you go through the story of Gideon, you read that he shifted his mindset so that he led an army to go into battle to have and have the victory. But you determine whether the battle even starts. Okay, you're the deciding factor in the battle, and you determine whether the battle even starts. Okay, how? By your words, by your mindset. That's why you have to shift your mindset. You've got to see yourself the way Yahweh sees you. Okay? Gideon had to see himself. Here he is hiding in a wine press, beating wheat. Look at, I'm the least in my clan. How can I do anything? But he had to shift. He had to shift his mindset to line up with how Yahweh saw him, and that's what allowed Gideon to begin speaking the right words. That's what allows you to begin speaking the right words, to be lining yourself up with Yahweh in the Word and having only the Word come out of your mouth. That's where the power in the battle is. And how do you do that? By spending all this time in the Word, by spending time in His presence. There's mighty power in the presence of Yahweh. Okay, mighty power in the presence of Yahweh. So Gideon was hiding, but Yahweh still called him out. Okay, catch that. Gideon was hiding. He was like, whatever. But Yahweh still called him out. Yahweh still called him out because he knew who Gideon ultimately was. The angel didn't call him by the circumstances, since he called him by his potential, mighty warrior. So the voice you agree with is the voice that rules your life. And too many times we're agreeing with the enemy. Well, I'm too weak to do this. That's too heavy. Oh, I'm too tired. Or, oh, the battle is just so big. Well, you don't know who I'm fighting against at the bank. You don't know who I'm fighting against at work. You don't know what, blah, 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 blah. And how does that all start? By lies that the enemy puts in our head, and we go with the lies. We need to stop agreeing with the enemy. And what we need to start doing is every single day, Mom gets up every day and she decrees and declares things, okay? She decrees and declares over herself who she is. I am more than a conqueror. I am the head and not the tail. I am above and not beneath. I am chosen. I am anointed. I am a victor and not a victim. I'm covered, okay? We need to be declaring things like this all the time, and teaching our children. This is something that I teach Azraelia every single day. Like when we're pleading the blood. And it's like, I'm covered in the blood in Yeshua's name. I'm protected by the blood in Yeshua's name. No weapon formed against me shall prosper in Yeshua's name. And every tongue that rises in judgment against me shall be proven to be in the wrong. Amen. Any word, any weapon. This is what we've got to be allowing, have coming out of our mouths all the time. And if you haven't noticed, there's a lot going on. Okay, there's a lot going on in this earth, in the world, in the nation, but there's a lot going on in individuals' lives. Okay, a lot going on. And you've got to be ready. You've got to be in a position where it's like, no, you know what? No, devil. No, like we sang that song one time. No, not today. No, not today. There's no way not today. And when you know that the enemy is coming at you about something, you got to gird yourself up. And you get in that battle position, and you're going to fight until the end. And the end is always victory, if you fight the right way. And the way to fight the right way is by the words of your mouth. There's so much power in your words. And was it in Ephesians or something where it says, don't let any idle word come out of your mouth. Let no unwholesome talk come out of your mouth. Okay, we don't realize sometimes the idle words that come out of our mouth. Okay, lots and lots and lots of idle words come out of our mouth. And the devil knows that. The devil hears them. Okay, him and his own little imps, they hear all the words that we speak, right? And he is a legalist. And you're the one that gives him legal authority. As soon as you release a wrong word out of your mouth because of something you see, okay, or something you hear or how you feel, you've now given him legal authority to start to act. Okay? Because he knows you're a speaking spirit. You determine how the story ends. Your actions, your decisions, your words determine the outcome. You know, the size of our Yahweh, not the size of the challenge, should shape your next move. Okay, we serve a big, big Yahweh. He's still on the throne. He always will be on the throne. And he is the king who has the last move. Okay? And it's not over till it's over. Right. And, you know, when we have, we get the victory, and whatever may have been going on before, for us to have to be in a battle to get the victory, it's like it never even happened. It never even happened. Not even the smell of smoke. And the other thing we got to realize is that, you know, Yahweh said, I will never leave you nor forsake you. Okay, he's always with us. He's always with us. And that means that the battle is no longer about if you win, but it's about how you're going to walk in the victory. Because you know what? There's no other option but victory for us. That's how it should be. And it's all with our words. You know, I was sharing with Jordan a couple of days ago. Actually, I don't recall what it was. But, you know, we talked about resurrection power a few weeks back and how that resurrection power resides in us. And, you know, we've had the tendency to think of, well, we just speak of resurrection power in our bodies or whatever. But just by doing that sermon and stuff, and, you know, it's like, no, you know what? Decree and declare resurrection power over anything. You know, you decree resurrection power into your finances, into your body, into your marriage, into your job, okay? Into whatever may be going on around you. We have the authority and the power to decree resurrection power because that's what's in us. And as soon as we speak the right words, that's what comes flowing out of us into the situation and causes that situation that the enemy is trying to do to be obliterated and completely turned around. Because what the devil means for harm, Yahweh always turns around for good. So it was interesting. It was I think maybe one night last week, and Scott Australia and I were all sitting in the living room because we had just got done with dinner, and it was later in the night. It was probably like 7:30 or so, and it was starting to get like kind of, you know, not dark, but, you know, dusk or whatever. And all of a sudden there was like thump. I mean, we have these big windows, all one side of the house. There's all these windows and sliding doors and stuff, and we heard thump, and then I think I was reading. And I look, it's a familiar sound, yeah. And I looked up at Scott and I was like, was that a bird? And he was like, yeah, it just dropped down. Well, I've had enough practice to instantly, I go and I look and it's like, okay, either they just fly away or they're laying on the ground and I need to go out there and take authority over it. So, and I have to say that this was a little bit of a different situation when I got out there. Now, I jumped up, got my shoes on, and went running outside, and there it was laying on the ground, and I could see it was alive. Its eyes were blinking and stuff. And, you know, when Mom says that you've got to make a decision in an instant, you know, like with Ashley, the next words out of your mouth are going to determine what happens. And, you know, in the natural, I'm not one that likes blood, really. So I have to quickly get myself back into position if I'm in a situation where I see blood. So now as I'm walking up to this bird, many, many times I've done this. And I have to say, I've never quite had this type of situation. So I walk up to this bird, and it's laying on his side, and it's looking at me. It was a cardinal. His eyes were open. And I noticed its beak was going like this, which they usually do because they've been stunned, so they're trying. And so I'm looking at his beak, and I'm like, oh, I didn't realize that cardinals' beaks were as red as the rest of their body. And so I went to go shift him, and when I went to go shift him, he had a pool of blood under his head. Now, that's where I instantly had to shift, because the devil would have liked me to go with, he's a goner. There's so much blood. I mean, it was coming out of it. It was just like flowing out of his mouth, and he was laying in this pool of blood. And so me having to fight against how sometimes I can be when I see blood, flesh, exactly, exactly. And what the devil is trying to say to me, natural facts, but we know the word trumps all facts. It always trumps facts. Yahweh always trumps facts. So I picked him up and I saw that, and instantly it was like, no, not today, devil. And I actually said that. That's been one of my little phrases that I say a lot now, is like, no, not today. And I just started speaking resurrection power to rise up in that bird. And some people think it's funny. It's like, why are you doing that for a bird? If you can't do it with a bird, how do you think you're going to do it if you're in a situation and somebody's been in a severe car accident? Okay? So I'm speaking resurrection power lives in this bird. Yahweh created it, okay? And whatever I touch, and whatever I touch, that resurrection power in me flows out of me into this bird. And you will live and not die. And I spoke to the bleeding to stop. And I was speaking other things. And then when I was trying to shift him to get him to, because I was like, bird, you got to do your part too, okay? You got to do your part. Don't just keep laying over on me. You need to, come on, let's get kicked up here. Sit up, bird. And so he'd fall over, and I'd be like, nope, and I'd pick him right back up. And then when I'd pick him back up, he'd like kind of be energized. But then slowly he'd start to fall over again. Look, nope, you're not, get up. I'm not letting you rest on this one. But it was like 30, 40 seconds into it. When I shifted him back up, I noticed all the blood had stopped. There was no more blood coming out of that bird's beak. All the blood had stopped. So I kept speaking over him, and I don't recall now everything that I was speaking over him. And I went running back into the house, and I think I had said to Scott, I need a rag or something, because I wanted to put the bird on a rag, because at this point it was starting to get dark, and it was a little cooler of a night. So I ran in and grabbed this rag from out under the sink and went back out, and he was still sitting there. So I put the rag down, and I went to pick him up. And when I went to pick him up, he started fluttering his wings. So I was like, you you go, bird, come on, in a resurrection power. And I was just speaking all this stuff to him. And I got him on the towel, the rag. And then I thought, okay, it's getting dark. I need to move him to a little bit of a safer place. So I picked him up, especially in our yard. Yeah. So I picked him up. I think it's probably a funny sight, because there I am trying to balance him going across the yard, okay? And I went and got him onto our little, we have this little patio now that Scott had built outside our cellar doors. So I kind of put him down on that. And then I just kept speaking over him. And I was petting him and rubbing him and stuff. And every once in a while, he still tried to close his eyes. Because when you're in a battle for a life, you got to be the coach in their life. When you see that they're starting to be like, no, I just don't, you've got to get in their face and be like, no, you open your eyes, you get up, yeah, open your eyes. Yeah.
Like Mom did with Ashley. Jump on top of them and open their eyes.
Yeah. You've got, in that moment, you've got to be the determining factor in their battle, because they might not be able to at that time. Okay, so you've got to be the determining factor. So it was like every time I saw that bird starting to do that, it was like, I'm not going to let you. I am not going to allow you to. And at one time, actually, I was like, and I even said to him, at one time when he was doing that, and I picked him back up, and I was like, don't you do that. He actually like chirped at me, and I was like, are you talking back to me? Like, do not be talking back to me. I am saving your life here, buddy, okay? And so, make a long story short, I just kept doing it until it got to the point where he was now sitting up on his own, and he was like blinking his eyes and looking around. I just kept petting him, cleaning the blood over him, covering him and stuff. And then I knew, it was like, okay, it's done. He's going to be absolutely fine. So I went back in the house, and I was sitting there and stuff, and I think it was like an hour later, I went over to the door and looked down, and he was just sitting there looking around, and it was like, okay, anytime you want, when you're ready, you can get off and go and fly. And then a little while later after that, Scott went out to get the bird feeders, and he was gone. Now, I do have to say, in that encounter, like I said, I've dealt with many birds before. But but not with those factors with it. And it was like, okay, instantly, I had to have a mindset shift. Instantly, I had to step into who I knew I was and not see what was going on in the natural, but see in the spiritual. And none of these things move me. None of these things move me. I will not be shaken. I will not slip, fall, or fail. I will not be moved by any of the circumstances going around me. And like I said, that might seem like a silly thing for some people, but in every situation and every opportunity, when it's been given to you to, so to speak, practice what's inside of us, you need to get right in on there. And you need to let the devil know who you are. And no, not today, devil. So, like I said before, that little story there, that battle, that means the battle is no longer about if you win, but how you will walk in that victory. So, think of David, okay? David did not wait to feel brave. He acted brave, okay? He just did it. He knew who he was and was like, no, I'm not gonna, he acted brave. He didn't wait to feel ready. He stepped into his moment. Esther didn't wait for a guarantee. She walked into the throne room. Knowing everything that could have happened to her, she walked into the throne room. She didn't wait for a sign. She walked in for such a time as this. Look at Yeshua. Yeshua didn't run from the cross. He embraced it for the joy set before him. He didn't wait for a rescue, for somebody to come and rescue him. He walked right through that crowd, okay? So another person we going to look at, and this is where we're tying it in with the power of the words, it's like, what about you? What about you? Are you going to be like David? Are you an Esther? Okay, we're made in the image and likeness of Yahweh, okay? So let's turn to 2 Kings chapter 4. And all of us sitting in here can say that we have seen Yahweh make a way. Okay, all of us in here can say that we have seen Yahweh do miraculous things in our life. Okay? And because of that, and I think Jordan said it a few weeks ago, you don't fight for victory, you fight from victory. Okay? You fight from victory. Victory is already a done deal. And that's where we got to fight from. So in, what did I say? 2 Kings? I didn't even turn to it yet. 2 Kings 4. Now, this is and we've talked about her before, but this is a powerful example of being in the midst of a pretty serious battle, okay, if I do say so myself, okay? It was a pretty serious battle with a mom with her child. And here's the perfect example of not being moved by what she saw, not being moved by the others around her, but also realizing that the others around her were not going to be any help. She was the determining factor. She was the deciding factor in this battle. So in 2 Kings verse 4, starting at chapter 4, 2 Kings chapter 4, let's start at verse 8. So it says, one day Elisha went on to Shunem, where a rich and influential woman lived, who insisted on his eating a meal. Afterward, whenever he passed by, he stopped there for a meal. Now catch this. She was planting seeds into this prophet of God. Okay? Because what does it say? She insisted on his eating a meal. She was treating this man with respect and hospitality and kindness and giving of herself. That was the beginning of her setting herself up for a miracle, because she was planting things. So afterward, whenever he passed by, he stopped there for a meal. And she said to her husband, behold now, I perceive that this is a holy man of Yahweh who passes by continually. Let us make a small chamber on the housetop and put there for him a bed, a table, a chair, and a lamp. Then whenever he comes to us, he can go up the outside stairs and rest here." So another big seed that she's planting into this man. And built a room for him, okay? And now she had no idea what was coming down the road, okay? Verse 11. "One day he came and turned into the chamber and lay there. And he said to Gehazi, his servant, 'Call the Shunammite.' When he had called her, she stood before him. And he said to Gehazi, 'Say now to her, you have been most painstakingly and reverently concerned for us. What is to be done for you?'" Now catch that. She planted seeds without even thinking about wanting something in return. Okay, without even asking. "Well, if you do this for me, I'll have this room for you already ready every single time you come." There was nothing like that. There were no strings attached, so to speak. Okay? "Would you like to be spoken for to the king or to the commander of the army?" She answered, "I dwell among my own people. They are sufficient." Later Elisha said, "What then is to be done for her?" Gehazi answered, "She has no child and her husband is old." He said, "Call her." Gehazi called her and she stood in the doorway. Elisha said, "At this season, when the time comes round, you shall embrace a son." She didn't even ask for it, okay? She didn't even pray or decree and declare, none of that. But her actions before, her planting seeds into this man of God, you know, Yahweh knew what her desire was, what she was believing for, what she wanted, and he was honoring her. He was giving her the desires of her heart. He said to her, "Call her." And Gehazi called her, and she stood in the doorway. Elisha said, "At this season, when the time comes round, you shall embrace a son." She said, "No, my lord, you man of God, do not lie to your handmaid." But the woman conceived and bore a son at that season the following year, as Elisha had said to her. When the child had grown, he went out one day to his father with the reapers. But he said to his father, "My head, my head." The man said to his servant, "Carry him to his mother." Interesting, okay? Catch that. Okay, carry him to his mother. And when he was brought to his mother, he sat on her knees till noon and then died. And she went up and laid him on the bed of the man of God and shut the door upon him and went out. You got to catch all the steps that this mother did. Okay, she could have laid him in any other place of the house. Okay, but what did she do? She went up and laid him on the bed of the man of God. Okay, the bed of the man of God, and she shut the door upon him and went out. And she called to her husband and said, "Send me one of the servants and one of the donkeys, that I may go quickly to the man of God and come back again." And he said, "Why go to him today? It is neither the new moon nor the Sabbath." And she said, "All is well." All is well. She didn't even tell her own husband, okay? He had no idea. All she responded to him was, "All is well." First words, very first words count. It will be all right. Then she saddled the donkey and said to her servant, "Ride fast. Do not slacken your pace for me unless I tell you." So she set out and came to the man of God at Mount Carmel. When the man of God saw her afar off, he said to Gehazi, his servant, "Behold, yonder is that Shunammite. Run to meet her and say, 'Is it well with you? Well with your husband? Well with the child?' And she answered, 'It is well.'" Even at that point, all is well. All is well. Faith was speaking, okay? A determination in this mom, okay? She was the determining factor in this battle. And all these steps shows the, for lack of a better word, I guess, the flawlessness on her part, where she was just so focused, eyes set like flint, knowing that if I just get to that man of God, everything is going to be like it never even happened. Speaking the end from the beginning. When she came to the mountain to the man of God, she clung to his feet. Gehazi came to thrust her away, but the man of God said, "Let her alone, for her soul is bitter and vexed within her, and the Lord has hid it from me and has not told me." Then she said, "Did I desire a son of my Lord? Did I not say, 'Do not deceive me'?" Now catch that. Very important right there. She didn't fall fall down at the feet of him and say, my son died. How could you do this to me? Okay, she did not speak what was happening in the natural. Okay, she didn't speak what was going on. She said, did I desire a son of my Lord? Did I not say, do not deceive me? She refused to speak what the enemy was probably trying like anything to get her to say. Okay, all of us in here, the enemy throws it up on full speed to try to just get you to let those wrong words out of your mouth. He puts so much pressure on you for you to get those wrong words out of your mouth. But here's a woman with determination and just a passion where it's like, no, all is well, all is well. Then he said to Gehazi, gird up your loins and take my staff in your hand and go lay my staff on the face of the child. If you meet any man, do not salute him. If he salutes you, do not answer him. The mother of the child says, as the Lord lives and as my soul lives, I will not leave you. And he arose and followed her. Gehazi passed on before them and laid the staff on the child's face. But the boy neither spoke nor heard. So he went back to meet Elisha and said to him, the child has not awakened. When Elisha arrived in the house, the child was dead and laid upon his bed. So he went in, shut the door on the two of them, and prayed to the Lord. He went up and lay on the child, put his mouth on his mouth, his eyes on his eyes, and his hands on his hands. And as he stretched himself on him and embraced him, the child's flesh became warm. Okay? Resurrection power. Okay? Yahweh, in the beginning of Genesis, said, light be, and it was. That was resurrection power that created light when he said, light be. And here we have Elisha laying on this boy, and this healing power, this power flowing out of him into this boy, and instantly he's beginning to become warm. Then he returned and walked in the house to and fro and went up again and stretched himself upon him. And the child sneezed 7 times and then opened his eyes. Then Elisha called Gehazi and said, call this Shunammite. So he called her, and when she came in, he said, take up your son. She came and fell at his feet, bowing herself to the ground. Then she took up her son and went out. Okay, here's an excellent example of an individual who knew the power of their words. Okay,
It was a focused mother.
It was a focused mother that knew she was the deciding factor in this event. She was the one that was going to determine what the outcome was going to be, whether it was victory or whether it was defeat. And you have to, we don't know some of the details and stuff, but as this mother going along, they had a real enemy back then too. And you've got to know, as she was probably riding out to Elisha, everything the enemy was bombarding her with. Oh, you're wasting your time. Don't go out there. Don't get the man of God. It's too late. Your boy's already been dead for quite some time now. Blah, 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 blah. Whatever the enemy may have been saying. But she just kept saying, all is well. All is well. Everything is going to be all right. Okay? A determined, focused mom that was going to get what she was coming for no matter what. She was going to have the final say in that situation. So for us, we have got to be like the Shunammite woman. When the enemy is doing something, when something comes across, some finances, a marriage, job situation, all is well. All is well. Everything is going to be all right. Because I serve a good Yahweh. And he takes very good care of me. He is my source for everything. Okay? And then on top of that, you add that we have resurrection power inside of us. The enemy has absolutely no chance against us. But we have got to see that. We have got to see who we are and what we carry, what we contain, the power and authority that we have, that we can overcome anything the enemy tries to bring our way. We have got to start walking in that. You know, interesting, I saw this quote, and it was like, when you go back to Yeshua, and the day that when he went to the cross, and this quote said, the cross, you know, remind me of Dad's sermon on God's courtroom. The cross was the courtroom. The resurrection was the verdict. Okay, that's good. Okay, the cross was the courtroom, but the resurrection was the verdict. So when you walk in a room, what happens? What does the enemy do when you walk in? Do you walk in empty-handed? Do you walk in, not knowing what to do? Do you walk in with all your prior whatever from your past trying to talk to you? Or do you walk in as one who has all authority, who has all glory, who has Holy Spirit inside of us, who has all resurrection power to take authority over any situation or circumstance like that? And it all has to do with our words. It all has to do with the power of our words. And when there's something going on, the devil doesn't want you to show up. He wants you to stay in bed with a blanket over your head because he knows, and we've got to know, that when you show up, you shift the balance into your favor. You shift the balance on how it's going to determine. The enemy wants you to sit it out. He wants you to stay in the wine press like Gideon did. But the moment you say, "Not today, devil," the tide turns. First words. The moment you speak the right words, even if you don't see it in the natural, okay? The moment you speak those right words, the tide begins to turn. Things begin to shift. Things begin to turn around, okay? And it starts going in the way of victory. We don't have to have everything figured out. We just need to show up with faith and faith-filled words. And Yahweh chooses you before the victory is ever seen. Think about Gideon, okay? Before the victory was ever seen, he chose Gideon. Gideon was threshing wheat in the winepress, hiding from his enemies. But what happened? The Lord said, "Mighty man of valor, mighty warrior that you are." At that moment, Gideon didn't look like a warrior. He didn't feel like a warrior. But Yahweh called him based on his potential, not on the condition. Yahweh spoke to who he was. The battle didn't start with swords. It didn't start with trumpets. It started with a mindset shift. And you must believe what Yahweh says about you before you ever swing your first blow. Because your first blow that you swing could either be a blow that contacts the enemy, or it could be a blow that swings right back around and contacts you. That's why you've got to know who you are and whose you are. And you determine what voice you listen to. You had the Shumanite woman who had almost guaranteed had the voice of the enemy speaking to her through that whole time. But she was focused to just keep saying, "All is well, all is well." And then you had the example of Job, okay? Now we know the story of Job. What I fear has come upon me, okay? Yeah, because you kept what? Saying it. He kept saying it. Now in Job's situation, as you read the last chapter of Job, okay, it turned around, okay? And he was restored to better than before, okay? His latter end was way better than his beginning end, okay? But he brought the battle on himself through the fear. So you determine what voice you listen to. We know that the enemy's favorite weapon is always a lie. You're not going to win. You're defeated. You might as well not even try this. You're inadequate. You're not qualified. Just give up, just quit, whatever. But what you choose to believe determines what kind of power flows through you. You're either going to have the resurrection power flow through you so there's victory, or you're going to have a different type of power that flows through you that's going to bring in the defeat. And if you believe who you are, if you believe you are who Yahweh says you are, like I was saying at the beginning, more than a conqueror, the head and not the tail, fearfully and wonderfully made. Okay? All authority has been given to us. Victorious and successful. All these things that we read. Okay, if you believe that, then you will fight like a victor and not a victim. That's who we were called to be, victors. Yahweh did not create us as victims. He did not birth us as victims. He created us as victors. We have victor DNA inside of us. Okay, we have champion DNA inside of us. That's who we are, champion DNA. Belief is your battle stance. Faith is your battle stance. Faith-filled words are your battle stance. And if you believe in the victory, you'll fight like it's already yours. Okay? If you know that the only result is victory, then you'll fight with that. The enemy will always try to name you with a lie, but Yahweh will always call you by your purpose. The enemy wins when you stay passive. Too many people lose battles not because the enemy was stronger, but because they never engaged the fight, because they never spoke the right words, because they never stood up and said, "No, devil, not today," and took them on with the word of Yahweh. So you have ultimately two choices to make, okay? You can either stand up and instantly allow the right words to come out of your mouth and determine that you will be the determining factor in the right way in the battle, that you will be the victory factor, or you can make the choice to be the defeat factor. Is really what you choose. Okay, but we should all know better. Yahweh said, choose life or choose death. But I'm telling you, choose life. He gives us that answer right then and there. Choose life. So we need to stand up, gird up our loins, start decreeing the right words. You know, we don't realize some of the words that come out of our mouths. Okay, and too many times we just let words come out of our mouths. You know, we kind of, what is that book that Fred Price wrote that was titled Presumption, Faith?
Foolishness and presumption.
Faith, you know, I recommend you read that book. Okay, and see where you are, because you you want to be in the faith category, all right? And I think sometimes we have a tendency to think, that's what I was looking for. We think we're somewhere we're not, and we're really not there. Is that right? We're really not there. And you know, yeah, we are big on words here. We talk about them all the time, and there's a reason for it. Because we have a very real enemy. And there's too many times where the enemy has gotten in. He's been able to throw a blow and it's hit. Okay? And enough's enough. Enough's enough. We're like past time for all of that. We have got to stand up knowing who we are and whose we are. We have got to stand up as sons and daughters of the Most High God. We've got to stand up as the ones who know and act out that we have all resurrection power flowing out of us. That when we instantly say something, just like when Yeshua said, stand up and walk, we have that same power inside of us. That same power in our words to change a situation like that. To see something one way and it's completely changed the next way. Okay? Things can change, will and can and will change overnight. Something may be one way one night, but the very next morning, it can be a totally different way. Why? All because of the power of our words. All because of the power of our words. All because we've had a mindset shift and decided, no, devil, not today. I'm rising up and I am taking what belongs to me. I'm not going to allow you to have my child. I'm not going to allow you to have my marriage. I'm not going to allow you to just steal my job. I'm not going to allow you to do this in my finances. I'm not going to allow you to do this in my body. I'm not going to allow you to do this. No, not today, Satan. Why? Because as he is, so are we in this world. And it's the time that we stand up and we decree and declare the way it will be. When we decree a thing, it is established. Okay? No choice. It is established. So you need to stand up. You need to decree and declare every single day, like Mom does. And most of us do anyways, I believe. But you know what? The times that we are in requires a higher arsenal of weapons. You know, you can't go out and take, what is it, a little 22 and think you're going to fight off a tank, okay? But you got one of those, what are those, grenade thing, those things that, grenade launcher or torpedo things, okay? You're gonna do some damage to that tank. And we have got to shift ourselves from trying to fight with this little peeny whatever and stand up and fight with the Word of God. And stand up and to be decreeing and declaring only what he has said. And even when your mouth wants to let something else, the Word says, you know what? Just shut your mouth. Actually, I have it right here. I was in the NLT version, in I believe it's Proverbs 15:28. And in Proverbs 15:28 it says, nope, maybe not Proverbs 15:28. Well, actually, I'll just read the ones that I had because I was going to read them anyways. But in Psalms 34:13, it says, then keep your tongue from speaking evil and your lips from telling lies. Proverbs 10:19 says, too much talk leads to sin. Be sensible and keep your mouth shut. If you can't do anything else, if you can't let faith words out of your mouth, keep your mouth shut. Proverbs 12:14 says, wise words bring many benefits. Proverbs 13:3, the one who guards his mouth preserves his life. The one who opens wide his lips comes to ruin. Proverbs 15:28, the heart of the godly thinks carefully before speaking. Proverbs 21:23, this is what I was trying to think of. This is the NLT version. Watch your tongue and keep your mouth shut, and you will stay out of trouble. Okay? Amen. Right? That sums it up right there. Watch your tongue, keep your mouth shut, and you will stay out of trouble. Proverbs 29:20 says, do you see a man who is hasty in his words? There is more hope for a fool than for him. Okay? Think about that. That's pretty strong. There's more hope for a fool than for him. Matthew 12:36 and 37 says, but I tell you that every careless word that people speak, they shall give an accounting for it in the day of judgment. The words you say will either acquit you or condemn you. Mark 11:23, for assuredly I say to you, whoever says to this mountain, be removed and cast in the sea, and does not doubt in his heart, but believes that those things he says will be done, he will have whatsoever he says. And then the last one, James 1:26, if you claim to be religious but don't control your tongue, you are fooling yourself, and your religion is worthless. Oh, I think this is the one Jordan was talking about, James 3:3-6. The tongue is a small thing that makes grand speeches, but a tiny spark can set a great forest on fire. And among all the parts of the body, the tongue is a flame of fire. It is the whole world of wickedness corrupting your entire body. It can set your whole life on fire, for it is set on fire by hell itself. Only you can prevent forest fires. Okay? So your words are either going to move mountains in your life, or your words are going to cause your life to go up in smoke. Okay? You're the determining factor. So you need to stand up and you need to decree and declare things right to the enemy. You know, like I said, I do this with Australia all the time. We'll stand up and we'll be like, I've even kind of gotten like, you do a visual and it's like, the word says he's under our feet. So it's like, okay, we're stomping him under our feet, okay? And she does her jumping thing type of thing, okay? But it's like, I'm going to show you that everything inside of me is you're a defeated foe, okay? But we have got to get more on, obviously we need to be decreeing things over our finances and over our health and over this and that. But really, those things don't take as much precedent as what you're decreeing over yourself. Because what you speak over yourself forms who you are going to be, so that when you have to take a battle on that has to do with your finances or your jobs, what you've been speaking over yourself as a warrior has you positioned to fight that battle of the finances and speak into that situation, or the battle in your body. So that's why we need to be declaring things like, I am more than a conqueror. Okay? I will live and not die. No weapon formed against me will prosper. I am the head and not the tail, like I was saying at the beginning. The Lord is with me. He will never leave me nor forsake me. The battle belongs to Yahweh, but the victory flows through me. And I am the deciding factor that changes everything. Okay? We're the deciding factors that change everything. And it's time that we got serious about it. It's time that we stopped, just stop playing games. I'm not sure how other way to say it. All right, just stop going through life like do. Okay, because the enemy's serious. The enemy, he's totally serious. He's totally come to just try to ultimately take you out. That's his goal. But when he comes across somebody who instantly stands up and just starts decreeing the word of Yahweh back to him, who knows who he is and whose he is, the devil sees that. Okay, what does the word say? The flees in stark terror, flees naked in stark terror in 7 different ways, okay? That's who we're supposed to be. That's who we're supposed to show the enemy, what we're supposed to show the enemy. And it all comes back to the words of our mouth. But you've got to get a hold of how you're the deciding factor in the battle. What are you going to do when a battle comes? What are you going to do, by illustration only, if the enemy attacks your body and there's an evil report from the doctor? How are you going to respond? And Mom and I are kind of talking about this a little bit the other day for another reason, but you either respond or react to a situation, okay? You need to respond. Spirit is responding. React is flesh. And we know that flesh gets us nowhere. Flesh will cause you to lose the battle, but spirit will cause you to win the battle. And it's all in how you determine what you're going to do. You're going to respond or react. And those are the deciding factors in how the battle is going to end out. So that's why we got to stand up and just take the enemy head on, because he's serious. We're in very, very serious times. And he's a serious, serious enemy. And if we even give him a little bit of a little room, little opening, he's going to take advantage of it. And he's going to sneak right in there. And better that you take care of something before the battle even has to start. Okay? A lot of times we bring battles on that we were never even meant to fight. We bring things upon ourselves that we were never even meant to deal with. If we had just done it right the first time, okay, spoke the right words, listened to counsel, okay, we wouldn't have even been in the situation that we were gotten ourselves into. But we serve a good Yahweh. And we get ourselves into place, into position, and do what we're supposed to do, it will be like it never even happened. And the only outcome for us will be victory.
I kind of want to go back to what she was talking about with the words of our mouth and stuff. Interesting. What does the title of that say? The War of Words. Winning battle before the first swing. That was an exact phrase she had in her notes about having the first swing. Proverbs 18:21 says, "Death and life are in the power of the tongue, and those who love it will eat its fruits." So the question that we need to find out is where are we losing the battles in our lives? We're not losing the battle in our lives in the valley. We're losing them in our vocabulary. That's where every battle is won or lost, is in what we say. Words are not just sounds. They're not just expressions. They are weapons. If we treated every word like a weapon, I have a license to carry. I was trained how to use the weapon that I carry. And I was also trained what not to do. You don't pick up the gun and look at it. You don't just, I'd start talking to people and just flinging the gun around like this. Anywhere you point that gun, if you hit the trigger, the bullet will go there. You only put your finger on the trigger. You ever see I don't watch these type of movies, but you think of old Westerns or something where they're running around with their finger on the trigger? No, you don't do that. You don't do that. You know trigger safety when you pick up a screwdriver, electric drill, and electric drill, and your fingers in a safe position. But the point is, like, if you have a loaded weapon, you're very careful with what you do with it. You're very careful. You don't want to just shoot it off in any direction because you're responsible for the damage that it could cause. Your words are like a loaded weapon. And whatever you allow out of your mouth is either going to hit an intended target for good or it's going to destroy something in your life. We got to be careful with our words. Words are not just reflections, they're directions. They set a direction in your life. When we speak, we're not just expressing a thought, we're shaping a reality in our life. And if we are realizing that we don't necessarily like the place where we are in our lives, then maybe we need to consider how have we shaped the reality that we're living in now by our words. How do we need to change that? Sherry read the examples of the battles in the Bible that were formed by words. Every battle, even in the natural, starts with words. You don't just see soldiers just suddenly jump up and run out and start shooting at each other. There were words that were exchanged first. There was an idea that was, they say that about the Holocaust. The Holocaust did not start with concentration camps. It started with words. Words that were spoken often enough that it formed a lie, it formed a picture, and then it became an action. That's how every battle starts, is with words. The enemy starts a battle in your mind with words. The things that happen to your body, it starts with words. Like that scripture said, life and death. The power of life and death doesn't hinge on a sword, but it hinges on the tongue. Like Dad said, that phrase, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. It's a lie. Sticks and stones may bruise you. They might break your bones, but words can permanently destroy a life. And so we got to be careful with that. We got to speak. If we want to win the battles in our life, we have to speak like victors before we see the victory. We got to speak the result before we see it. Before you lift a hand, before you step into the battle, you've already begun to fight with your words. Life and death, victory and defeat, courage and collapse, all of it is on the edge of your tongue. Like she said, the next words matter. What you say is shaping what you see, even if you don't realize it yet. Doesn't matter whether you realize it or not. It's shaping your reality. 2 Corinthians 4:13 says, it is written, I believed, therefore have I spoken. Since we have that same spirit of faith, we also believe and therefore speak. See, real faith doesn't just sit there silently. It doesn't just allow any word to come out of its mouth. It doesn't sit in the corner hoping something changes. It gets loud. It speaks. It declares. It decrees. If you believe God is moving, your mouth will move too. I believe he's moving in my life. And I believe he's creating what I'm believing for. He's bringing it to pass. Well, then my mouth had better get into alignment with that. When David stood before Goliath. I think she touched on that. 1 Samuel 17:45 through 47 in the NLT says, David replied to the Philistine, you come to me with sword, spear, and javelin, but I come to you in the name of the Lord of heaven's armies. Today the Lord will conquer you, and the whole world will know that there is a God in Israel. So David's prophesying the end result. He is speaking the end before he even began the battle. Battle hadn't even begun, but he's already saying, today the Lord will conquer you. Yeah, you're coming at me and you're saying, oh, I'm going to take you down. Well, I happen to be standing here backed up by the Lord of heaven's army. I don't care what kind of a giant you are, you're no match for the Lord of heaven's army. And I am standing in that name. And today the whole world will know that there is a God in Israel. That was his declaration. So before David swung a stone, he swung his voice. Victory started not in his hands, not in the sling, but it started in his mouth. Had he gone out in there and said, oh, that giant's big, I don't know if I can take this on, Lord, the battle would have turned out differently. Right. David's words declared the outcome. He prophesied the giant's downfall before it even happened. What do? You know, what you say when the giant is standing before you reveals whether your faith is alive or it's just a theoretical idea. You know, and sometimes, you know, not to get off on a side trail, but I think sometimes we make giants out of midgets. You know what I mean? You know, mountains out of molehills. The enemy comes up with something that's actually, in the whole scheme of things, a very minor thing. And then suddenly we find that we're in a total panic about it, and we don't know what we're going to do. And what is the next thing that I should do? I don't know if I should do this or that. And if you start finding yourself down that, maybe you need to step back and say, is this really a giant? Is it as big as I'm making it seem? Or is it something that the enemy is trying to amplify and say, this is really big? If you're treating little things as really big things, then what are you going to do when the big things happen? Right. I mean, that's when you need to do a checkup on your faith. Some of us are standing there waiting for the giant to fall with our mouth closed. You know, God is waiting for us to speak it like it already has happened. Like the giant has already fallen. You can't have a giant killer outcome with a grasshopper confession. You know, they'll go into the land and take over the land, and there's giants in the land, but we're as grasshoppers in our eyes, so we are in their eyes. That's what defeated them. Not the giants. It was their own confession about themselves. It was their inner image, their mindset that needed to shift, like Sherry was saying. James 3:3-5, when we put bits into the mouth of horses, or take ships as an example, they are steered by a very small rudder. Likewise, the tongue is a small part of the body, but it makes great boast. Wherever your tongue goes, your life follows. You know, think of a car. Think of somebody driving a car, and hopefully there wouldn't be anyone who actually is doing this, but say somebody's driving a car, and all of a sudden the car starts going off the road, and they start screaming, I don't want to go this way. I don't want to go this way. This isn't the direction I want to go. You say, just turn the steering wheel. But they're not touching the steering wheel. They're just screaming, I don't want to go this direction. I don't want to go this direction. You have the power to change the direction of the car. But if they don't turn the steering wheel, they can plow into a tree and destroy the whole car and maybe get hurt. The power was in the steering wheel. That little steering wheel in front of them controlled the entire car. You know, and it could have avoided a disaster if they just used it. Your tongue, or the rudder of a ship. Think how big some of the ships are, especially some of these massive cruise ships and stuff. They're all controlled the same way. There's a rudder, a very small rudder, controls that massive thing. Now, it can't turn on a dime. Now you think of it, oh, that's going on. You can't just like turn it. Whoop, it's going to go. It's a big thing. It might take a while. If it's been set in a particular course for a while, it might take a while to start to change the direction because it was set in going one way. It's a whole other sermon, yeah. But if it stays consistent in the rudder turning this way, I'm going to turn the rudder the direction I want to go before I see it going that direction. You know, if like your car, you can't say, well, I want to go that direction, but the car's not turning that direction, so I'm going to wait for it to turn that direction before I turn the steering wheel. How foolish would that be? Okay, I mean, when we put it into physical examples like this, it's like, oh, well, duh. But you think of it, that person, that what do they call it? Is captain of a ship? Captain of that ship starts to turn the rudder, and at first you see nothing happening. But then slowly, it starts changing its course, changing its direction. And then you can see the results of it. That's what our tongue is like. We start speaking the victory. We start speaking words of faith. We might not at first see the results, but it's working. Just as much as Yeshua when he spoke to that fig tree. You didn't see anything right away. They walked by it later. They didn't see anything. But the next morning, the fig tree was dried up from its roots. See, the word was working from the roots up, not where you didn't see, before it came to the point where you could see it. Wherever your tongue goes, your life follows. excuse me, your life moves in the direction of your most dominant declarations. You can declare despair every day and wonder why joy never shows up. I don't know why I'm so sad. I'm so sad. You keep saying that, you're going to stay that way. You can't curse your future and expect heaven to bless it. You know, how many people just foolishly let words come out? I'll never succeed. I'll never be able to do this. I'll never be able to get ahead. And then you say, well, God bless me. Well, you're contradicting yourself. It's bitter and sweet waters coming out of the same fountain. If you consistently speak fear, negativity, and doubt, don't be surprised if your life feels like it's sinking. You're putting it there. If you want a new destination, you have to steer with a new language. You have to change your speech. If you're in a storm, you know, if the enemy brings a storm up against you, what is the words that come out of your mouth? What do you declare when the winds start to blow? You say, oh my gosh, it's windy out here. You know, some people need to stop begging God to change the wind and start changing the rudder. You know, start changing your declaration. Do you say, I'm sinking? Lord, help me, I'm sinking. You know, or do you say, peace, be still? There was 2 responses to the same storm. You know, think of Yeshua when he was in that boat with the disciples. He was sleeping. He was seeing something from a different perspective than they were seeing. He was resting in the fact that he said, let's go to the other side. We're going to make it to the other side. I'm trusting that God's going to bring me to the other side. They're like panicking. They're bailing out the boat. Lord, do you not care that we're perishing? You know, they were not focused on the same thing that he was focused. But instead of saying, I'll never get out of this, I'm never going to get ahead and all that, you say, God, my God will supply all my needs. Keep the word only in your mouth. The storm may not disappear instantly, but you start changing the course of it, and eventually everything will be still. If your words are weapons, you need to speak it like you mean it. Revelation 12:11, and they overcame him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony. You know, victory over the enemy comes in 2 parts. What Yeshua already did, that's the blood. And then what you dare to say, that's your testimony. You don't defeat darkness by thinking about it, thinking about the light. You defeat darkness by speaking the light. The blood is the power. Your words are the trigger. There's power in the blood. There's resurrection power that is residing in us. But the only way we can release it is if we pull the trigger by our words. Yeshua faced the temptation in the wilderness not by staying silent or by thinking about Scripture. He didn't go through and say, I'm thinking about a Scripture. You know, I'm thinking about a number from 1 to 10. No, but by speaking it. It is written consistently. It is written. He wasn't whispering nice thoughts. He wasn't just saying, oh, this is a nice one. He was waging war with those words. It says that we are to wage war with the words of prophecy that have been given to us. Every lie of the enemy was met with the truth of the word that came out of his mouth, spoken out loud. Not thought, spoken out loud. So if Yeshua, think about it, if Yeshua had to speak the truth to win, why would we think we're any different? If Yeshua himself had to speak the word over situations, over temptations that the enemy was bringing up against him, why would we think that we would address any challenge in our life any different? He's our model. As he is, so are we in this world. Ephesians 4:29, do not let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouths, but only what is helpful for building others up. And, you know, what you say doesn't just shape your world, but it affects everyone in your orbit. You know, if you're just scatter shooting all these words all over the place, someone's going to get hurt. You know, but even more dangerously, you know, to talk about edifying others and building others up, but you hear yourself speak. And your heart will take your words as a command. It will start lining itself up and organizing itself around whatever you're speaking. So if you're speaking like, I'm a failure, I'll never change, I can't do this, you're not speaking truth. You're prophesying a prison into effect in your life. What are you prophesying over your life? I said this before, the spy report, that they seemed like grasshoppers in their own eyes. And so we see in them. The spies were not defeated by giants. They didn't lose to the giants. They were defeated by their own confession. What they said created their literal reality. Only Joshua and Caleb spoke differently, and their outcome was different. You know, they lived to see the promised land. You're not defeated because of what's in front of you. You're defeated by what you are saying about what's in front of you. It's not the giant in front of you that's defeating you. It's what you're saying about it. So you want to speak in the direction that you want to go. Isaiah 50 verse 4 says, "The Lord God has given me the tongue of a disciple and of one who is taught, that I may know how to speak a word," see, not just think, "speak a word in season to the one who is weary." So there's a breakthrough in speaking the right word at the right time, whether it be for you, whether it be for someone else. One word at the right time can lift someone from a pit. It can break a curse. It can open a door, or it can call someone back to life. It can speak life into things. You don't wait until you feel strong to speak like you're strong. You know, what does it say in Joel 3:10? Let the weak say, "I am a warrior." I am a warrior. God doesn't tell the weak to say, "I'm trying. I'm going to get there someday, somehow." He says, "Say I am a warrior." He tells you to declare a truth that doesn't match your current circumstance. If you're speaking what matches your current circumstance, you're going to get more of that. It's not lying. It's faith talking. You're speaking the truth of God's word to override your current circumstance. You don't say what you feel. You speak based on what has been promised. What does the Lord say? What is thus saith the Lord in this situation? If God says you're more than a conqueror, then don't call yourself a coward. Like Gideon in the beginning. "Oh, I'm the least of the Lord just said the Lord is with you, mighty warrior." So either you're going to align with that or you're not. And that's going to determine the course of your life. So when the battle heats up in our lives, and it will, the enemy likes to try to turn the furnace up 7 times hotter sometimes. But you don't just pray to the Lord. Start prophesying over your future. Don't just hope, but declare the word of God. What are you saying about your future? What are you saying about your marriage? What are you saying about your children? What are you saying about your calling? What are you saying about your past? What are you saying? God already spoke life. Now it's up to you to echo that. It's up to you to copy his words. Yeah, we're called to copy him. It actually says that in Ephesians, "Copy me and follow my example as I imitate him." Yeah, we're supposed to be a copy of him. And before we start fighting with our hands or fighting the battle in the natural, we got to fight it with our words. We got to speak like soldiers. We got to speak like a warrior that we're called to be. Because the war isn't just out there, it starts here. Every war in our life begins with words. Every war in our life is won or lost with the words of our mouth. And so we got to make sure that we're aligning ourselves with that and not getting ourselves in alignment with what the enemy says. Don't ever want to be in alignment with the enemy's plan. His plan is not for good. It's not the one that you want to be in sync with. So our words matter. You want to come up and share what you have?
Interesting. Let me put this on. See if this is working.
It's not turned on at all.
It's on now. Is this working? Excellent. So, interesting, we're talking about the power of your tongue, the power of a declaration, being ready for the battle, all that. But for you to be ready out there in the battle, you already have had to have done something, okay? And when Sherry and I were talking the other day, we were kind of just like touching upon the whole thing that we just sense Holy Spirit is just keep circling about it, okay? And how many times are you going to talk about this? Well, until you get it, okay? And we were talking about it. I was saying a few things to her. She was saying a few things to me. and they were coinciding. They were going. And I said, it's almost like I got to pull all my stuff together and just like stand there and just speak it all out. You know what I mean? And it's interesting. I told her, I have Holy Spirit will say something to me and I'll put it in notes. I'll put it in notes, put it in notes. So I pulled it all together, and that's what I'm going to do. This is like when I say I hear, okay, you got to take it as you, okay? This is kind of lengthy. I'm going to watch for the time, okay, if things are needed or something like that, okay? So I'm just going to say, I'm going to read this to you, okay? I'm going to read this to you, and you hear it as it's you, okay? When I wake up in the morning, I'm not just rising to a new day. I am rising to a divine appointment. Each morning is a blank canvas that heaven places in my hands. When I speak in faith, when I declare in those moments, and what I declare in those moments, it has the power to shape my entire day. That is a truth. This is not superstition. It is a spiritual law. Life and death are in the power of my tongue. When I speak with faith, heaven listens. When I declare the word of Yahweh, all of creation bends to align with his promises that I've spoken. As I command my morning, it's not a ritual. It is warfare. Understand that. The enemy doesn't wait until noon to launch his attacks against me. He strikes early, hoping to catch me off guard. That is why I must rise first thing in the morning with authority. Before my feet even hit the ground, I align my heart with heaven. I refuse to let fear, anxiety, or doubt script my day. Instead, I rise, and immediately I say, and you can ask him because he does the same thing, this is the day that Yahweh has made. I will rejoice and be exceedingly glad in it. I'm expecting my greatest blessing and miracle ever today because Yahweh surrounds me with his uncommon favor and his presence as with a shield. I don't wait for shalom to find me. I speak it into my atmosphere before I even go to sleep at night because I know who's going to be waiting in the morning, okay? It waits for me. Shalom is waiting for me in the morning when I wake up. I don't wait for joy to arise. I proclaim it, and it floods my soul and saturates my atmosphere. Psalm 118:15 says, the voice of joy and victory resounds from the walls of the house of the righteous. My walls resound with great joy and victory because I speak it into it. I'm not a victim of the day. I am a commander of it. I am a daughter of Yahweh, and all of the authority of heaven rests on my tongue. I speak blessings over my family, over my health, over my finances, over my destiny. I say only what Yahweh says about me. I declare I am the head and I'm not the tail. I'm above only and I'm never beneath. I'm blessed when I come in and I'm blessed when I go out. I declare that no weapon formed against me shall prosper, and every tongue that rises against me in judgment I will condemn. I know that these are not empty words. They are spiritual missiles. Angels hearken to and respond to the voice of Yahweh's word when I speak it. They recognize the fragrance of their creator, and they are dispatched on assignment. You got to see this. This is in the morning when you wake up. You got to remind yourself of this. It is a spiritual law that Yahweh rules the universe by the words that he spoke. I will rule my life by the word that I speak. This is a revelation that I must walk in. I speak life with boldness. I stand every morning as a soldier reporting for duty. The world around me may still be asleep, which it usually is, but in the spirit realm, my words are shaking foundations, tearing down strongholds, and opening gates of favor for me. I refuse to be passive. I refuse to let the chaos of the world dictate my day. I open my mouth and I declare shalom and divine order. I declare divine protection for me, my household, and my family, and my country, and for Israel. I declare supernatural provision. I declare overwhelming, surpassing victory is already mine. My voice is a weapon. My tongue is a sword. Heaven is waiting for my command. I speak and the day will obey. When I wake up in the morning, something powerful is going to be set in motion. The atmosphere around me is quiet, still, and spiritually charged. This is not just the beginning of a natural day. It is the gateway to everything that I am going to experience, confront, and overcome today. My first thoughts and words are not trivial. They are spiritual seeds. What I speak as I rise has the power to shape my emotions, my decisions, my focus, and even the outcome of every single situation that waits for me in my day. That is why my words must be deliberate, bold, and aligned with heaven. There is a spiritual principle that governs the truth. Proverbs 18:21, life and death are in the power of the tongue. What you say can preserve life or destroy it. So you must accept the consequences of your own words. That's not a metaphor. It's a law. My words are not simply sound. They are containers of power. They carry life or death, blessing or curse, faith or fear. If the first words I speak in the morning are filled with frustration, dread, or anxiety, I am empowering those forces to define my day. But if I rise and speak words filled with faith, promise, praise, and divine purpose, I am activating the supernatural realm to work in my favor. Many people start their morning reacting. They check their phones, they listen to the news, or they rehearse in their minds their worries. But I was not created to be a reactor. I was created to be a commander. Yahweh did not give me a voice just to express feelings. Feelings are very bad decision makers. He made me a speaking spirit so that I could declare His word, His will into my life. Commanding my morning means that I'm not waiting for the day to define me. I'm stepping into the day with spiritual authority, and I am defining the day. I am speaking what I want to see, not what the devil tries to suggest might happen. I'm shaping my atmosphere. I'm not being shaped by it. This is not about positive thinking. It is about prophetic declaration. Yahweh spoke the world into existence, and He created me in His image. That means that I have been given the same creative ability to speak life into dead places, right? To call shalom into chaos, and to release blessing over every area of my day. My morning declarations are not empty affirmations. They are divine commands that engage spiritual forces. Angels are assigned to obey the voice of Yahweh's word as I speak it. When I declare His promises, I'm given heaven permission to move on my behalf. Every morning, I and all of you have a choice. I can speak my feelings, or I can speak my faith. I can declare what the natural facts say, or I can declare what Yahweh's truth says. What I choose will determine how my day unfolds. That is why it's crucial that I begin each morning by intentionally setting my heart and my mouth in alignment with heaven. Before I check my phone, answer a text message, open my mail, I take authority over my day. I say that this is the day that Yahweh has made. You know that whole thing. That's what I say it. I say it all immediately when my eyes open in the morning. I start declaring and decreeing that. I speak shalom into my home. I speak strength into my body. I speak clarity into my mind and favor into my path. I speak that no weapon formed against me will prosper. I speak that I walk in the light of Yahweh's promises and the impenetrable protection of his angels. These are not just words. They are power-filled spiritual decrees. When I speak this, I know things automatically shift. Not just in the atmosphere, but they're shifting within me where it counts. I ensure that I see accurately. I'm commanding divine confidence to rise up in my mind. My thoughts align with a higher reality. My heart is focused and accurately aligned, beating in exact sync with the rhythm of my Abba Yahweh's heartbeat. I become aware that I am not just getting through the day. I am reigning all throughout it. My speech begins to create my experience. That is exactly how Yahweh designed it. I was never meant to be powerless in the face of life's challenges. I was meant to stand in overwhelming, surpassing victory, and my words are the key that's going to unlock that victory. Even when circumstances look chaotic or unpredictable, the power of my tongue remains steadfast. I may not be able to control everything that happens, but I can control how I respond. I can control the atmosphere that I carry into every situation. I will speak shalom. I not only carry shalom, I create and I release it into every situation. When I declare victory, I walk in victory. When I speak life, I sow life not only into my inner world, but into every situation and every relationship. This is not superstition. This is spiritual law. My words either partner with heaven or with fear. The choice is mine. So each morning, I am intentional. I don't just wake up, I rise up. I don't just go through the motions, I go into divine motion. I step into my morning with the heart of a lion and the words of a prophet. As I speak as one who knows the power of my tongue. I speak as one who knows the authority that's been given to me through my Messiah. I refuse to let the day happen to me. Instead, I happen to the day. My words will open doors. My words will break down walls. My words will pull down strongholds. My words will silence storms. My words will heal wounds. My words will declare and manifest the presence of my Almighty Yahweh. In every step that I take, I command that every moment is a moment where heaven hears my voice and hell trembles at my command. I speak boldly. You notice? I speak faithfully. This gets into me, forgive me if I'm like, but it's just, I say this stuff and it's like exciting. She hears me downstairs sometimes. I speak faithfully. I speak chaim and shalom, divine life and wholeness. Commanding my morning is not just an occasional happening. It's a spiritual discipline. It's the act of engaging the unseen realm before I engage the seen realm. The moment that I wake up, I know that there is already a spiritual agenda at play. The enemy does not wait for me to have my happy juice or my smoothie before he begins to try to sow seeds of confusion and distraction. That's why my response must be immediate, intentional, and filled with power. I must rise with the mindset of a soldier reporting for duty, not a civilian that's drifting through life. Spiritual warfare does not take breaks, and neither should my authority. Morning is not just a time on a clock. It's a spiritual gate. Hear this. It is the beginning portal of the day. It's the entrance points to everything that will unfold. Gates are places of transaction, influence, and control in the ancient world. The gates of the city were where decisions were made, where elders sat, and where authority was exercised. In the same way, when I wake up, I'm standing at the gate of my day. I do not speak blessings, then curse. If I do not speak blessings, then curses will try to fill the void. Somebody who gets up, oh, well, I'm too late, and rushing through, and they don't even say anything, okay? That void is going to be filled. The enemy's going to make sure. If I do not declare shalom, then chaos will try to invade. I must take spiritual responsibility for the atmosphere of my day. That starts first thing in the morning. This is not something to be done passively. I don't stumble into a victorious day. I speak my way into it. There is a power in my declaration. There is spiritual weight in my voice. I am never begging Yahweh to move on my behalf. I am enforcing something that he has already spoken. When I declare I'm blessed, I'm not making a wish. I am coming into agreement with a divine truth. When I say that no weapon formed against me shall prosper, I'm not hoping for protection. I'm invoking Yahweh's covenant promises. Yahweh's covenant promise moves from the fourth heavenly dimension into this natural earthly dimension when faith is spoken. Angels are released on assignment to fulfill that word. Darkness is pushed back and breakthrough is rushing in. Not because of my emotions, but because of my authority. That authority is mine, not because of who I am in the natural, but because of who I am and whose I am in the great I am. Yeshua has given me his name, his word, and his divine nature. That means that when I command my morning, I'm not speaking as a mere human trying to survive. I'm speaking as a representative of heaven, an ambassador with all the power to shift the atmosphere. This is why the enemy works so hard to keep me silent, distracted, or discouraged first thing in the morning, and all of you as well. He knows that a believer who speaks Yahweh's word early is a believer who's going to walk in victory all day. I must see my words as weapons. I'm not just talking, I'm targeting. When I say shalom surrounds me today, I'm placing a spiritual barrier around my mind and my emotions, because that's where the battle lies. When I say favor finds and surrounds me today, I'm opening legal doors of opportunity and divine connections. When I declare that I walk in divine health, I am setting up a supernatural force field that resists and repels sickness from even entering my zone. And I'm standing in alignment with my covenant promise of healing and wholeness. These declarations are not wishful thinking. They are acts of spiritual warfare and enforcement. I'm establishing a perimeter around my day with the authority of Yahweh's word. This does not mean that problems will not arise. It means that when they do, they are met with an already fortified hedge and a strong barrier that I've created. I'm never caught off guard because I have already positioned myself in the Spirit. I have already activated all of heaven's resources in my behalf. They are firmly established and they are unshakable. I'm not reacting in fear. I'm responding in faith. My declaration in the morning becomes a weapon in any battle that I may face. If my emotions try to pull me down, the word already spoken into place ensures that I'm going to stay up in my high position. If anxiety knocks at the door, my morning declarations answer it with the canceling agent of shalom. This is why consistency is the key. I cannot do this once a week and expect daily power. It's in the consistency. That's where the power lies. Commanding my morning is a lifestyle, not an emergency button. I make it my practice to rise and speak Chaim and Shalom before anything else speaks to me. Before text notifications, before social media, before email, before the news concerning Israel, I let my voice be heard in heaven. Psalm 5:3 says, "In the morning you hear my voice, O Lord. In the morning I prepare a declaration for you, and I watch and wait for you to speak to my heart. I open my mouth and I declare only Yahweh's word. I don't have to feel spiritual to do it. I don't have to wait until the atmosphere feels perfect. My authority is not based on any emotion. It's based on truth, regardless of what may be presenting itself in the natural. I speak Yahweh's word in faith, and I let the power of Holy Spirit fill and shift the atmosphere. My mind stays sharp and spiritually focused. The chaos of the world will not dominate my heart because my heart has already been fixed and established, anchored in Yahweh's truth. Isaiah 26:3 says, "You will keep in perfect and constant peace the one whose mind is steadfast, committed, and focused on you." In both inclination and character, it's focused on you because he trusts and takes refuge in you with hope and confident expectation. Psalm 112:7 says, "He shall not be afraid of evil tidings. His heart is firmly fixed, trusting, leaning on, and being confident in the Lord. His heart is established and steady. He will not be afraid while he waits to see his desire established upon his adversaries." Get my hint? In Acts 20:24, it says, "But none of these things move me." In Romans 8:37, it says, "In all these things, we are more than conquerors because he loves us." In 2 Corinthians 2:14, it says, "Now thanks be to Yahweh, who always causes me to triumph in Messiah." I recognize the power of proclaiming Scripture out loud. Don't just think it. Don't even just read it to yourself. Read it out loud. I understand that when I speak Yahweh's word, it does not return empty. It always accomplishes what it was sent to do. So when I command my morning, I'm not just preparing for a better day. I'm planting the seeds for the fruitful life that I'm about to live. What may have begun as discipline has now grown into delight. I find myself craving those moments of declaration, not as a duty, but as a source of strength. My morning is a sacred place. It is my empowering place. It is the birthing room of my day. I will never let it be filled with worry, noise, or passivity. I fill it with power, purpose, and praise. The authority is already in my mouth, waiting to be released. I sit and command my morning. Actually, I stand a lot of the time. Commanding my morning with boldness, and I watch heaven respond. The power of blessing lies within my mouth, and from the moment that I begin to understand this, everything about my life and my morning has shifted. Most people think blessings are things that we're waiting to receive, gifts that fall from the sky, random favors or divine surprises. But the truth is that many blessings are not received. They are released through our words. I'm not only a recipient of blessings, I am the vessel and the channel through which it flows. When I speak in alignment with Yahweh's word, I activate and I release blessing over my day, my family, my health, and my destiny. From the very beginning, Yahweh demonstrated this principle in creation. He spoke, "Light be," and the potential for all matter was released in that moment. At his spoken command, it became the sun, the moon, the earth, the animals. All things came into being by the words of his mouth. Then he made man, me, in his own image, breathing into him the very essence of who he is, giving him the ability to speak, create, name, and command. That wasn't an accident. Yahweh has designed my human speech to be a carrier of divine power. That's why the enemy works so hard to contaminate my speech. He knows that if he can control my words, he can influence my world. When I begin my day with intentional blessing speech, I'm not just offering nice thoughts or hopeful wishes. I'm engaging with and operating in powerful spiritual law. I'm aligning myself with Yahweh's creative force. I'm partnering with heaven, co-laboring with the great I Am to release all the power of his spoken covenant blessing into my life and those in my sphere of influence. As I declare that I am blessed today, I know that it's not a shallow affirmation. It is a powerful, supernatural, creative declaration that angels recognize and that demons fear and that circumstances must conform to. When I declare that my children are covered and called by Yahweh, I'm placing a spiritual hedge around them. When I say doors of favor are opening for me, I'm setting divine appointments in motion. But true declaration is tied to the level of my faith. I can't declare and expect results for what I don't believe. The power lies in believing a truth that my words carry weight. I know that my declarations, they're not just bouncing off the walls, but they are creating real matter that makes an impact in that unseen realm. Yeshua said that if I have faith as a mustard seed, I can say to that mountain, be moved, and it will obey me. He didn't say that if I think hard enough, you said that, or if I feel spiritual enough. He said, if I say in faith, faith is not silent. It speaks, and when it speaks, it moves things. My morning is my launching pad. The words that I speak as I rise are the spiritual tools that Yahweh has placed in my hand. If I begin with complaint, people do that sometime in prayer. You notice that all they're doing is moaning, groaning, and complaining, okay, about the situation. I will invite more things to complain about. If I begin with anxious thoughts, I'm going to open the door to anxiety. But if I begin with declarations of faith-filled words, I prepare the soil of my day for spiritual fruitfulness. I command over my health, chaim and shalom, declaring that my body is strong and whole. I declare that I have the mind of Yeshua, and my thoughts are peaceful and focused on the victory that's already won for me. I declare over my finances by speaking abundance and stewardship. I declare over the church harmony. Harmony, Lord, harmony, strength, and growth. Not just numbers. In themselves, Lord. They're growing, Lord, maturing to the higher wisdom. Some are waiting for circumstances to change before they start speaking the blessings. That's not how the kingdom of Yahweh works. I speak the blessing before I see the blessing. I declare total victory over my situation while it still looks chaotic. I speak life into what seems dead. It's like that rudder. You turn it, and it's going the right way. That is the nature of faith. Abraham was called the father of faith because he believed in Yahweh, who calls things that are not as though they were. That is what declaring does. It speaks the reality of heaven into the atmosphere of earth. My words can break yokes, or it can build impenetrable walls around me. They can plant hope or sow doubt. My mouth can become a vessel for healing, encouragement, and spiritual alignment, sometimes without ever even leaving my bedroom. I do not strive to sound spiritual. I strive to live strategically. I choose to speak life even when it seems hard. This is not just a good habit, it's a holy practice. It is a lifestyle of walking in authority, speaking in agreement with Yahweh's will. Every morning is a fresh opportunity to bless the path ahead, speaking as a king, decreeing as a priest, and declaring as a child of Yahweh. If I do not see results immediately, I just keep speaking. I stay faithful because the power of blessing is in my mouth. And if I continue to align my words with Yahweh's word, I am releasing one of the most powerful things that I can to shape not only my life, but that of those who are under my jurisdiction. It's more than a spiritual discipline. It is a divine strategy. The world is filled with noise, opinions, fears, negativity, chaos, violence, and distractions. But the word of Yahweh is pure, eternal truth. When I speak it, I'm not just quoting a book. I am releasing supernatural power into my atmosphere. I'm drawing a line in the sand, and I am declaring reality. Every circumstance must bow its knee. Each morning when I rise, my mouth becomes either a weapon of power or of weakness. My tongue is small, but it holds the authority to steer my entire day. I silence every lie with the power of eternal truth. The alignment of my words with Yahweh's word creates an unshakable foundation for me to stand on. When I wake up and I speak the promise of Yahweh out loud, I not only encourage myself, I'm setting spiritual forces into action. I'm giving them a divine assignment. I'm not passively hoping for a good day. I am prophetically preparing the path before me. I am not reacting to life. I am authoring it with the authority that Yahweh has given me through his word. I never speak based on what I feel, what I see, or what I hear. Spiritual maturity speaks the word even when it contradicts my current experience. That is real faith. I align myself with a higher truth. Yahweh's word does not change with my circumstances. It remains fixed, faithful, and full of power. Because I continue to decree it, the circumstances begin to align with that truth. The discipline of speaking scripture aloud is something that transforms not just my mornings, but my mindset. When I declare that what Yahweh says about me, I come into my true identity. I walk in confidence, not self-confidence, but Yahweh confidence. I internalize the truth that I am fearfully and wonderfully made, that I am more than a conqueror, that no weapon formed against me shall prosper, that greater is he who's in me than he that's in the world. That's not just a memory verse. They are weapons of my warfare. I wake up saying, I walk in the favor of Yahweh today. Everything that I put my hand to prospers. I am anointed. I am chosen. I am covered by the blood of Yeshua. I am led by Holy Spirit and not my flesh. Every step that I take is ordered by Yahweh. I am setting spiritual truths in motion as I speak that forth. I refuse to allow my environment, my past, or my circumstances to define me. I agree with heaven, and heaven agrees with me. Only the word is living, active, and sharper than any double-edged sword. When it's in my mouth, it becomes a force of creation. Yahweh did not create the world with feelings. He created it with words. And when I speak his word, I align with that same creative power. I shape and reshape my world one declaration at a time. The most powerful thing I can do is speak the word when everything in me wants to be silent. That is the very moment that my mouth must open and declare Yahweh's word until my atmosphere shifts. When I release it, immediately the word is working. It has become a force of creation, preparing the way before me. I have activated divine reinforcements. I have sent spiritual forces out into action. This is kingdom. This is how I fight my battle. This is how I stand firm. This is how I command my life. My life is built every morning by truth, not feelings. My word echoes heaven, not the noise of the world around me. I have strength of body, clarity of mind, divine protection, uncommon favor flowing into every part of my day. As my words align with Yahweh's word, miracles do happen. I am consistent in commanding my morning. This makes me a truly powerful force to be reckoned with. I do not operate in just a single moment of motivation once in a while. I operate in the steady rhythm of commanding Yahweh's truth every single day. It is my lifestyle. It's not a now and then act. My spiritual climate has shifted. My Yahweh-given authority is activated. It has determined the higher trajectory of my life. Because I consistently speak Yahweh's promise of overwhelming, surpassing victory, which I say to you guys all the time, and uncommon favor, my life reflects that alignment. It has not happened overnight, but like the steady flow of a river that has the power to carve canyons into rocks, my consistent declarations have and continue to carve out new, higher pathways of revelation and power in my spiritual understanding of the deep and intimate knowledge of my Abba Yahweh. My mind has been renewed, my thinking has been rewired, and my faith has been reinforced. My mind is submission to the truth, no matter what things may look like in the natural. My spiritual muscles are strengthened. My spirit has been trained through regular discipline. My flesh has learned that it will never control me. I have authority over it. The enemy cannot thrive in my life because I've removed disorder and distraction by taking my rightful place in the fourth dimension at the beginning of every day. My declarations establish unshakable divine order. My spoken words, like seeds planted in fertile ground, have taken root in the spirit, and they are bringing about a bountiful harvest in my life. I do not react to life's chaos because I am anchored in the truth. I am unshakable, not because the storms of life may have ceased. That would have been nice. But because I have learned to command my day right from the start. I position my heart in the presence of Yahweh so that no matter what challenge may arise, I am not easily moved. I have prepared myself for victory in battle every day. I have spiritual resilience. My consistency becomes a testimony to those around me. I am not just influencing my day, I am influencing my environment by what I have cultivated within me. Yahweh moves in my life because I consistently and diligently seek him, and I include him, virtually I do, in every part of my day, not just my morning. I rise every day with purpose. I start my day with intention, not reaction. I expect that because the Greater One lives in me and I cultivate a constant awareness of his presence, I believe that I will have a massive spiritual impact wherever I go. Before I tune into the world each day, I tune into Yahweh's fourth dimension. I listen for what he may speak to me as an assignment for shaping that day and unlock favor, not just for today, but for my future. The words that I speak are not temporary, but they are eternal seeds planted in the soil of time, and they have gone ahead of me to pave the path of my victory. I am a victor enforcing heaven's agenda. I command my morning, and I command my life. I stand at the threshold of every day, fully aware of the authority that has been placed in my mouth. As a child of the Most High, I am clothed in righteousness, armed with the word, and I'm backed by all of heaven. I set the course of my day in alignment with Yahweh's divine intent and purpose. By speaking his word, I release the atmosphere of heaven into my world, which builds a life anchored in unshakable truth. It is not just my morning routine. It is my spiritual mandate. I rise up daily. I speak the word boldly. I believe in its power deeply, and I walk confidently knowing that I am commanding my destiny by commanding my morning. Amen and amen.
Well, thank you for those of you who
Selah.
Thank you for those of you who joined us. We trust you
Selah.
got something out of all that. Go back and
Hallelujah.
listen to that again. We will
Amen.
see you on Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Until then, you have a blessed week.